Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2021 horror film Demigod, a film that is co-written and directed by Miles Dulake, who also is in the film. And the film stars Rachel Nichols, Johann Miles, Miles Dulake, the director, Eleanor Sanchez, and Rachel Riles. Now, to try and describe this film is almost like a cross between Hard Target and Predator, and it focuses on Rachel Nichols' character Robin and her husband Leo, who arrive at like this shack, and it's in Germany, and it belonged to her grandfather who has passed away and left this shack to her. She has childhood memories, not particularly fond childhood memories, of visiting this shack. And then she meets one of the locals with her husband, who seems a bit off. He's a local hunter, tells them some more scary stories and things, and then they are essentially abducted along with a few other locals, including this hunter, and offered up as a sacrifice, as there is a yearly annual sacrifice that takes place, that these local witches who worship this demigod, basically once a year this demigod turns up and expects sacrifices, and it is up to these witches to offer these sacrifices up. And these are the new batch of sacrifices, so they are let loose in the woods, and this demigod hunts them down one at a time. Will they survive? Well, you'll probably have to check that out for yourself by watching the film. What are my thoughts on Demigod? This actually, while it's low budget, it's actually quite a watchable film in many ways. This horror film, it looks pretty nice. There's some decent cinematography going on, some nice camera work. The performances are all fine for the most part. I mean, Rachel Nichols is a fairly recognisable actress. I certainly remember seeing her in. Certainly, I think she was in Star Trek, the rebooted Star Trek in 2009, and she's been in a couple of other things, so she's fairly recognisable. And the majority of the actors do a decent job. Now, some of the actors are German. I certainly suspect they are German anyway. So English potentially is not their first language, but they do a decent job as well. So it's like it feels immediately familiar, this film. It actually didn't go down the route I was expecting. It's quite a slow start to the film. You meet Robin and her husband, and they're talking about this shack and her memories, etc., etc. And then, boom, it happens. They get abducted. They get tied to a tree and then told what's going to happen, and then released into the woods and hunted by this demigod. And then the film kind of becomes something else. Like I say, it becomes a cross between Hard Target and Predator. Now, this demigod, I think the issue with the film is, I think one of the issues certainly with the film is it's kind of anticlimactic. You don't see a lot of this demigod, and what you do see, essentially, it just looks like a man, and then when you see it up close, it's obviously got like this beastly face sort of thing with horns. The effects are okay for that for the most part, but I never really felt it was a sinister presence. Not overly so, and it's one of those films that just turns up conveniently to kill a character, no matter how smart they've been or what preparation they've done. And conveniently, there might be, for example, there might be a couple of characters fighting over who's going to survive, etc., etc. And obviously, I don't want to spoil the story. And then the demigod suddenly just turns up out of nowhere and takes one of them out. So there's no real sense of hunter and prey here. I never got that sense of anxiousness that someone is really desperately hiding or done something really clever to try and outwit this demigod and give them an extra few minutes to try and get away here and there. Not really. It never really feels like that. And when they do something like that, it doesn't seem to make any difference. This demigod will still take them out, sort of thing. So it almost feels like the cards are stacked against them, and there's no real way of winning here. And then the conclusion felt a bit convoluted to me. The reasons it gave for some character's survival that was supposed to tie into the early part of the film Didn't all tie up to me, didn't all make a lot of sense. So yeah, actually it's surprisingly interesting, this one. It was not as bad as I expected. The performances were certainly all decent. And it was watchable for what it was. It just didn't, for it to be a horror, it didn't feel particularly scary. Well, it wasn't scary. It felt more like an action film. So it felt like the horror element of the film didn't match the film they delivered. Like I say, it felt like Hard Target versus Predator. Now, Predator is a combination of action, horror, and sci-fi, and it blends all them beautifully. This, I don't feel, blended the horror and the action well enough, if you like. So it's watchable for sure, but you do feel a little bit when you've watched it that it could have been a lot better. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Let me know, guys, if you've seen Demigod, what you thought of it. I thought it was certainly a decent effort and a decent attempt. So thanks for watching. I'll be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.